Yeah, I think there is a real danger of that happening with the way that the other things have panned out, with the way that Americas have started to pick up some points in the other disciplines as well, because of the fact that it's been a little bit of a disappointing performance in Battlegrounds for both of these teams. And by that, I mean Americas are crushing everybody, so everyone else is a tiny bit disappointed. We've seen moments of brilliance from both of these teams. For the Chinese team, it has been largely focused around Island Cat. For the European team, it's been largely focused around RDU. That is not to say that the other 6 players there that I did not mention are not capable of putting up big numbers in this lobby now, but it just goes to show you how streaky this game can be sometimes, and it does seem like Island Cat and RDU are the players that are running hot at the moment. We shall see if that can continue, and shall see whether this lobby gets dictated by Diablo in the way that most of Europe's lobbies have been so far, thanks to RDU really favouring that as a high priority pick.
And you see how biased RDU is that Island Cat hasn't even picked it yet in a assembler of absolute garbage alongside it, and he was still having a think, do I really want to pick this? What have we got on the other side? There was an Isira there, there was an Omu there. No, we're going to have to wait and see and make it up as we go along, I think. But a Jandis with no token start, I always find this very fascinating. It's one of my most interesting things to watch, because Jandis with a token start, we can all do, right? Anyone who plays Battlegrounds a bit can at least take some 5s and see what happens at the very least.
Yeah, well, I mean, you say that, but the amount of times I've seen Jandises with a 3 on their board just still makes me want to reevaluate everything I think I know about this game. No, wait, the opposite of that. Want me to make them reevaluate everything they think they know about Battlegrounds, because I'm right and they're wrong. You don't take 3s on Jandis.
I don't know if JJ still does. I don't think he does anymore. He was like the last holdout, I think, of the major players. Like, no, a 3 is right. It gives you some tempo. And I'm not going to argue with JJ. He has been ranked 1 on Europe for quite a while, on and off this season.
True.
So just Tao on the Omu, and Omu, another class that hero. We don't talk about needing a token start as often as maybe we should, although I have mentioned it already in this cast. Getting that token start for Omu is a big deal. You just get to fly up through the ranks.
Yeah, you absolutely do. Generally, if you don't hit the token with Omu, you'll probably stay on 1 for an extra turn at least, and then it still ends up being ever so slightly gold inefficient as you move up through the tiers. But if you have a token or a swabby on turn 1, then on turn 2 you can just level up and buy a second minion, and then that extra minion that you have on your board you can then re-leverage into cheating those tavern tiers a couple of extra times to move up very quickly if you want to. So the token start is absolutely huge on Omu Sun, who I think will be hoping to pick up her numbers a little bit in this final lobby now. She has perhaps underperformed the most out of anyone on any team in terms of her current ladder MMR versus her results in the tournament up until this point. PF now, we are seeing no!
He did
illegal,
the thing!
Banned! Disqualified! Get out of my tournament!
Did the thing! Alright. And I was going to say, well, his plan is obviously to hit Taragoza and just try for some dragons, but it's a dragon lobby with Isira in it, and yeah, he's not doing that, so okay, let's see how that develops. I was going to talk about Sun a little bit there as well. She is on Mutinous again, which she has a bit of a love-hate relationship with. She picks it quite often, but we saw on day 1 it just wasn't behaving. She ended up with like a 14-9 tank that she couldn't eat, that wasn't really... Yeah, the tank's not there to have a 14-9 stat, it's there to shoot things. And it's just an awkward number, it's not really particularly great as a 14-9, you just want to eat it and stick it on a Divine Shield. And everything just went wrong for her, so picking it again, just getting back on the horse and having another go. And this time hopefully it works out better for her.
Neil, I have 2 questions. Firstly, what's a mutinous, and is it good at milking?
I don't know, and I'll let you explain.
Okay, fine.
In that order. How would you like me to pronounce it? Chat, I'm opening this to you. Yeah. Okay, let's go with that. Let's go with mutinous.
Excellent start from Simi on the Refarm. Tons of triple potential available, good tempo, plenty of opportunities to roll into 4. Aveline on the other side is playing out the Shiny Curve with Reno. Shiny Curve is staying down on Tavern 1 until 7 gold and then double leveling with that 7 gold on 7, with the idea being that you have hit a triple by that point. But Aveline actually deciding to bail and going for a very late Golden Wrathweaver play with the Reno, which I was not expecting to see there. She had multiple pairs available at that point to be able to execute on the goal of the Shiny Curve, essentially, and actually look for a Golden 4 or 5 drop. Primarily looking for, of course, a Golden Dazzling Lightspawn in that position with the natural curve, but she did bail, and she is going with that Golden Jessie.
I'm not entirely against that decision because Aveline is not naturally a large Battlegrounds player. She has obviously played the game. She obviously knows how it functions. She's played it a bit, but she is more of a constructor player in general. So taking the thing that stops you from getting a bad finish, I don't think is necessarily a terrible choice. Let the rest of her team do the things they're supposed to, and if she can get 4th or 5th or 3rd, I think that's absolutely fine for how the team should pan out.
It's the fairly standard at this point. 10 treasure hand for the Diablo on after the first fight. That 5/5 that you get is just absolutely monstrous at that point in the game. You are generally expected to win every fight. It's just kind of a matter of whether you get any scam kills on your 5/5 demon, right? Of just all of your opponent's attacks going to the right every single time, that kind of thing. But full hand of prizes was found, and he's going to be in a decent position on tempo for a number of turns now.
One thing that concerns me slightly about this lobby for Europe is RDU on Ysera. Ysera is a great hero, but it's a very high variant hero, and your best player, or the one who's been performing the best in this tournament so far at least, on a high variance hero is a scary prospect. You'd rather them be on the solid hero, the one they're going to get a good finish with, because it can just miss and come 8th, and RDU seems to have had a bad start, but we've only seen his health total so far and not what he's actually picked up.
Looks like some big damage going through here on the right-hand side from Aveline to Simi on the Refarm. One final attack was available there. If it was able to go into the Houndmaster, that would have cut out a lot of the damage, but 9 is a big chunk to take in that position. I hope very much for Simi's sake that she is holding some of that triple potential in hand right now, because if she still has to keep going digging for more triples, she might just run out of health a little bit fast. She certainly is. Okay, when I was saying holding some triple potential in hand, that is pretty much best case scenario as far as I can see it.
Yeah, we talk about token lobbies for Jandis, we talk about it for Omu. We don't talk about it much for a farm, but token lobbies for a farm get you triples because everybody picks the tokens. So sometimes that can be actually quite a big thing going on. And yeah, she picks up the Light Fang, not a card we see that often, but is still a playable card in some situations.
Was this really 5s? Did this have to be 5s?
There's elementals and no mechs.
There's elementals and no mechs, yeah. So I do still think having the Acolyte on board, you don't have to hit Dazzling Lightspawn. You can hit Nest Matron, right? And still be in a good enough position with that 4. 5s are just a little bit sketch. Like, Light Fang is not the powerhouse it once used to be. This is a ridiculous conversation, but overheard on a stream somewhere. It might have been Collins and Shady. Otherwise, it was 2 very high MMR players having a conversation with each other, and they said the words, Light Fang should probably get buffed. Now, brief potted history of this card. When the game first came out, Light Fang was the go-to strategy to the point where it got nerfed to giving +2/+1 instead of +2/+2, was then restored to its original glory after the game progressed to a point where that was probably fine. And now it's so weak that players are actually advocating it to be buffed to actually bring Menagerie back up to line with other strategies.
Yeah, when I learned the game sort of early last year, double Light Fang was how you got to 8k. You just took 2 Light Fangs and everybody died to you. You don't see it do that anymore because people don't even get to get the 5 anymore. But it is still decent. It's still +4/+4 every turn. It's still going to give you some early tempo, but it doesn't fit in with any other parts of what the game does right now. It doesn't fit in with Avenge unless you're incredibly lucky, because a lot of the Avenge stuff is neutral. So we are going to have to just see if that scaling is enough to carry through several turns. It is very early, so there is a chance.
Lala relying on Bird Buddy tempo over here. Currently only has a couple of beasts going, but certainly with Sneed, this isn't the first time that I have said this during this broadcast, but cards that say Avenge on them are generally just a little bit more powerful than those that don't. If you are Sneed, that is doubly, if not triply, if not quadruply true. The cards that say Avenge on them are absolutely monstrous. So I like that that is being played into as much as possible by the Sneed player.
Giggling over there as Simi hits the golden light fang, which I don't think I've seen in this season of Battlegrounds at all. And we're going to see it here, and it is going to provide early scaling. The fun's going to be with no Quillbores in, I believe.
Legally distinct Hearthground Battlemasters. That's what we're playing right now, yes.
Continues from there. Just to point out about La La La, I feel from what I understand, and I don't understand much about Chinese Battlegrounds, I think he might be the equivalent to Sun Glitters. I think he's the player that might need to be stepping up in this team to back up Island Cat in the same way that the Sun that needs to back up RDU.
Like underperforming their skill level is what you're saying? Yeah, okay.
And again, sample size of 6 lobbies can be absolutely meaningless, but he's the player I think we need to keep an eye on, assuming Island Cat keeps just doing what Island Cat has done all tournament so far, which is roll whatever he needs.
Bird Buddy mirror going down here. Divine Shield landing on the Bird Buddy as well is a huge deal, because that means it's surviving a couple of attacks, and the Hydra takedown is massive in that spot as well. Still going to be a loss for La 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 on the Sneed, but not anywhere near the level of damage he could have been taking if that had gone worse.
RDU is down to 10 health. We haven't had a look yet at how that is going, because that can mean anything on a Asira. You do take early damage, but sometimes you just keep taking damage, and sometimes you stabilize. So how RDU is performing right now is very important.
Just from eyeballing it, it feels like the red bar went down very quickly and then has not moved very much in the last few fights. So I think and suspect that RDU might have started stabilizing with a few Taragosa at this point, but we will have to take a look at the board to find out. This is Island Cat's big turn on the Diablo, looking for that murder board state where the first one is set up, where you just try and get that full handful of 10 prizes, and then you try and use that turn 8 boss fight to set up something as murdery as possible, which is why I really like going with this Gas Coiler here. He can now do significant chunks of damage to members of the lobby here, and anyone 15 and under is under threat of dying this turn.
Look at RDU's hand. It might just be enough. It's really close. I think he's got one more roll to hit something with all the money in hand.
Takes Selfless even. Okay, looking for that Divine Shield nice and early on that Taragosa. That is 6 dragons still, so that is going to be +12/+12, as long as he puts the 2 cards next to each other, which I'm sure he will be doing.
I don't think it's just that, though. I mean, that's obviously the point, but I think this is a tempo play. I think he just doesn't want to die here, because he's got to 4 last turn. He's just gone to 4 on the side. And if he can just get lucky here, he's fine.
No, I disagree. I think on average, because he's Ysera, he rolls, he guarantees hits a dragon, right? I think on average that's more tempo than buying one Selfless Hero. I think that Selfless Hero is to do exactly that it just did there, because he's RDU.
I forgot he was RDU. Why did I not
Nails it.
Yeah, why would I ever think he might possibly miss?
Yeah.
But he still might get eliminated, though. This isn't going that well apart from the 25-25. There's some big stuff on the other side.
Oh, the Gas Coiler snipe! 6 drop comes out! That's going to hit into the taunt, and that is going to be death for RDU. He is hoisted by his own petard here as he sees the power in his own mind of Diablo from the other side, taking him down on that turn 8 fight. Island Cat is now going to assess, and honestly, We could see here that Island Cat loses several other of the fights because I do think RDU is a little bit weak overall compared to some of the massive tempo we saw from like the Bird Buddies, etc., that everyone else had at the time.
Yep, he loses this one against Sneed, which is not particularly surprising, but it's another loss. Let's see how many things he does get.
Oh, 3 kills. 3 kills is huge. I'm pretty sure he's getting a full hand. Yep. Picks up 8 in the end. Doesn't quite get the full 10, but he does have another massive, massive round. Simi, in the meantime, has converted this Light Fang pretty well. Has picked up the Divine Shield Dragon. That's the #1 thing you are looking for when you're going down that Light Fang route. You need Divine Shields to dump those stats on. Divine Shields, Cleaves, anything with special effects. You can't just have a generic minion of each type and hope that Light Fang will get you there. It's another one of those reasons why Light Fang's a little bit iffy, because you do still need those very specific combo pieces to go with them. But Simi right now doing very well for herself. Hits Divine Shield, Poison, Wind Fury, Amalgadon as well. And suddenly she's looking to be actually very strong in this lobby now.
Yep, and where there's one of those, there's usually another soon to follow, because you get to go to 6. You've still got the brand, you've got the extra tribe that the Amalgadon provides, and she doesn't even need much, but that should develop nicely over the next few turns. All right, Island Cat dumping the secrets, etc., like you do. Leaves him with 3 prizes remaining. He's on 6 already, by the way, as always. He seems to be a Collins level of aggression, the way he plays. Or of aggression in leveling. We've got to get these words sorted, I guess.
So he is facing down the Jandis now. PF on the Jandis, who took a 3 and then presumably won 5 after the fact. Oh, it might even have been a 3 and a 4 with the way that board looks with the light spawn.
Right. This is just a mismatch, isn't it, with this Light Fang this early, actually. There's so many stats, and the triple poison as well, as you just described. We're seeing it in action, how powerful this is. Because it's still pretty early in the game. It's only turn 9 or 10, right? We just had the 8. The
turn 9,
boss
yeah.
fight on 8, so it's turn 9. This is a monstrous board.
It is an absolute monster of a board, yeah. And certainly, you know, I was naysaying the Light Fang, and I absolutely stand by it. But if you're going to hit one Light Fang, hit 3 of them very quickly. And pro tip, that's going to improve your chances exponentially of actually making something out of that Light Fang situation.
Island Cat just hanging on here against the Jandis. But remember, this Jandis took 3s early on, at least one of them. And so be curious to see exactly how that has progressed, because that tempo should be wearing off about now.
Yeah, it looked like, as I was saying, she took a 3 and a 4, it almost looks like, or the 5 that she may have ended up taking was garbage and was just discarded for a Dazzling Light Spawn instead, because that's all that's going on with PF on the Jandis. Is he's currently scaling a Dazzling Elemental as best he can, but on low health he's already had to bail and actually fill up his board with 13-ish Elementals, so the scaling is kind of done with at this point. And honestly, that's my criticism of taking a 3 on Jandis, is your ceiling of where your power caps out at is very low. He's done very well to survive the Diablo term, which has put him in a decent position in 5th place in the lobby, but it's really hard to see him improving from this position significantly because of that 3 drop that was taken early.
Tao trying to work out exactly how to do this with the double reborn with a triple in the shop. There's a lot going on here, because these beast comps, obviously there's an easy part to it, which is make big things with Mama Bear, but the hard part is actually aligning your board so that it performs in an okay manner when it's out there, because none of it looks particularly smart, but it's all right. It's heavy enough over time, but you want to make sure you get all of the value from these death rattles, and you can see how he's just flicking all the minions around, doesn't quite know where to position them.
And never mind, I take it all back, because that light spawn is now golden, and the world is absolutely PF's oyster to be able to take this one home. He has golden light spawn, he has 2 other pairs on board, he even has the smogger that he can use to flip back and forwards to take advantage of his Jandis hero power. So much to my chagrin, he's actually looking like he's in pretty good shape to have a very comfortable finish in this lobby.
Watching the Omu match on the other side, these beasts. He's really looking carefully at this. I don't think he was happy with his positioning. It seems fine, by the way it's panning out and the way it looked as he started the fight. But I think he's trying to work out where he wants to put everything.
I'm still watching the other side as these minions just got traded out in almost exactly the perfect order for PF to get scammed here. He was 96% favoured going into this, and he was only 1 or 2 attacks away at the end of actually losing that to the Mama Bear, surviving to max value everything else, every other beast on the board getting spawned without the Mama being traded down, but in the end, did find his way out of it. Secures a 3rd place now. Smogger triple is huge. Does mean that the flip cannot be used anymore because Jandis cannot flip a golden minion back into the shop. But still, just consolidating those stats into another 45-45 on the board is a very, very big deal, let alone the buff that he's getting from it.
Simi recognising that it's time to get some stats from somewhere else, and she needs to because the rest of Europe have finished in the bottom 3 spots. So she is trying to accumulate everyone's trying to accumulate all the points they can, but it's really important for the team that she gets a top 2 out of this one. And it's probably early enough for her to be okay.
I had not even noticed that. Yeah, that is Aveline on the Reno, who went with the Golden Wrathweaver, did not get there. That was Sun on the Mutinous, who got the 8th, and that was RDU on the Ysera that we saw just fall victim to the murder board from the Diablo on the wrong turn. So yeah, you are absolutely correct. Simi is the one last hope for Europe in this lobby.
Yeah, of course, she does not know that. We have to keep reiterating that. Sorry if you've been with us for the last few hours. Well, we've said it a few times, but the players do not know who is on which team. So as far as Simi's concerned, she could be in with 2 Europeans, or she could be the one battling it out. And it is the latter. The Europeans who have been knocked out desperately need her to win this lobby. Trying to envisage how she would match up against these elementals, but we're going to see it in action now on the left-hand side. Very close breakpoints, which is why we've both gone silent while we look at it. It does look like Simi's a large favourite from the numbers at the top. There were some very, very close numbers on health totals and stuff, but yeah, she does get that one done, and she does eliminate PF, get herself into the top 2. While Island Cat seems to be having a monster battle with a ghost.
It really does at the moment, I think. That's why I was silent, because I actually took in both fights at the same time and just had a moment of clarity of like, I think Simi might just win the lobby this fight. There is a real chance that Island Cat can go down to the ghost here, as you can see even from the stats on top. But it looks like he might just be able to get out of it. Still had those demons to fall back on as well. Not enough death rattles coming out of the Snee, but that was a little bit too close for comfort. And even though Simi did not take it home there with the death off the ghost fight, I think she is still an enormous favorite to be able to take this one down. The Golden Light Fang has now been discarded, which is a great piece of recognition. Have had 1 or 2 criticisms with the way this lobby has been played out by Simi, but I think she has adapted very nicely to this late game situation, recognizing that Bran is a better closer than even the Golden Light Fang when it comes to landing these Amalgadons. And I think because of that great recognition in the late game, she's got herself into a very, very strong position now to take this one down.
Just to point out, though, his turn 12, Diablo gets a hero power for a turn. He actually gets a free minion on this next attack at some point. And so it's a pit fight, even though there's only 2 of them in it. So it's going to be a bit of an equaliser for Island Cat, but Simi's board is looking very powerful right now.
Yeah, I think I still take Simi over Island Cat's board plus a 20-20 this turn. I think once we see the numbers, we will probably see that Simi is a pretty solid favourite here overall. She has poisons, she has divine shields, she has numbers, she has everything that she possibly needs to cover the bases here. I imagine that this is going to be a Europe victory on the lobby, but still overall, I think this lobby will be taken down by China. I think China will have the points lead at the end of this one.
Yeah, the bottom 3 there for Europe, but it'll be a lot closer with that extra point for Simi, assuming she wins this lobby. And we're saying somebody from each side needed to step up. Well, Simi has done that, but for China, here's Island Cat again.
Here he is again. Yeah, he just seems to be the boy, the absolute carry for China, the way that we're seeing things go down. This initial Wind Fury hit is not going to be a big deal because they both will crash into those taunts provided from the sewer rat. But as you can see, so much value still left remaining. And even with this second Crocolisk, I just do not see this board getting there. The only real question is lethal or not this turn. And even then, I think Island Cat would struggle to find a way to counter-build this board.
Especially as he loses the 2020 before he even starts his next turn.
And a treasure, right?
And
because Simi will then have access to a treasure that he won't on the following turn. Like, it's just not going to get there.
Yeah, Simi going to pick up the win again. Is it lethal? He's got a lot of health. It's probably not.
It's not, right? Either Simi's on 6, so it's 6, 11, 14, 15 as it stands right now, even if nothing else dies. So I think we will have to go through one more fight here. But like I said, what even is your game plan as Island Cat to counter-build this from the position that you're in? Because I think Simi just has you checked on all fronts right now. Like,
she's got
Ghoul could be a starting point, I suppose, but even then she has you covered in stats. The death rattles that you have going on probably don't get there because of that massive amount of stats that they have. Like, each one of Simi's minions will be able to trade through 3 or 4 Mama Bear death rattle type things, so it really doesn't feel like it's going to get there in a hurry.
Yeah, going the other way, getting poison doesn't work because she's got divine shields. Getting divine shields doesn't work because she's got divine shields. Triple Mama Bear is too much of a long shot, but might help a little bit if that was to turn up.
More reborns, more crocs, more mamas. It's a selection of things that create small incremental improvements to Island Cat's board, but Island Cat does not need incremental improvements. He needs a revolutionary change to his board, and I don't think any of this stuff is going to get there. Well, I think double Mama Bear is probably the best way to go about it overall. He can now, if he wants to, choose to sell through reborn something and replace the Pale Scale, for example, or play for 2 reborns here instead. He's actually getting out of the Parrot and into double Pale Scale, which is actually a good optimization. I actually think I like that over what I suggested initially. I think in terms of maximizing percentage, this is probably as close as he was ever going to get, and it's 0.
Brilliant timing there, Sottle. I appreciate that one. It's like led nicely into... What's the number? Oh, it's gone.
Yeah. And it's gone.
Yep, so we're just going to go through the formalities of Simi winning this game. And then she's going to go from being incredibly happy at winning the game, like we all would be, to then looking around and saying, where are my teammates, John Travolta style? What's happening? Where are they? Just looking over around. There's nobody else got any more points at all.
Even the final BM of the Divine Shield not even going off because there was one solitary Divine Shield minion left hanging around on board. Well played to Simi, picking up the win there for Europe. Island Cat picking up the second for China, but also crucially an 8th, 7th, 6th for the remainder of the Europe team as well, which means it's not going to have been a successful lobby for them overall. And certainly had some questions about the way the lobby was played from Simi, the decisions to go for 5s in the first place, the decisions to lean so heavily into Lightfang. But this is the way of Battlegrounds, and it's something that people will have to get used to, especially if we do start doing more and more Battlegrounds tournaments in the future, as a lot of people hope to do. Is you can be critical of things that work out really well, because sample sizes of 1 don't end up being particularly useful most of the time. And again, I would stand by it and say that I would have played that game differently at a point where our paths would diverge. However, if you put me on the path that Simi chose, I then agree with most, if not all, of her decisions after that point, where she converted that Lightfang into Bran Amalgadons, basically transitioning from a non-game-winning game-winning menagerie into a game-winning menagerie. That's going from Lightfang just dumping stats on things into Bran, Divine Shield, Amalgadons, Poison, all of that good stuff. So her conversion after the point she got there was excellent, and that's what I think ended up taking down the lobby in first place.
Reminds me a little bit of the early days of Hearthstone itself, when we had the arguments about style and right or wrong. And I think that still hasn't been resolved to some degree, because strategy in games is a thing. You can't always see the end effect. And playing to a style playing to a board state you're comfortable with, once again, even if it's a secondary choice, if you do that well, it's often better than executing something you're not so sure of that could be better, but executing it badly. So she chose the right path for her in this game, because she executed that really well, as you said, and she chose the path she knew she wasn't going to botch, and got the win because of it.
And she needed it. Her team needed someone to put up big numbers in this lobby. We mentioned this earlier. We were saying we were suspicious that if RDU was going to have a bad lobby, that it would probably be Sun that stepped up and put up a big performance. It was neither of those two, and it ended up being Simi who put in the big numbers, but someone needed to do so. Otherwise, there would be a catastrophically large gap in this initial lobby. As it is, 7 points is a gap that can be overcome in the space of 2 more lobbies, but that is largely due to 3 other players on the team owing a big thank you to Simi/Noffy. By the way,
right,
we are referring to her as Simi because that is just habitually. She's chosen the name Noffy for good luck. She is still largely known by the name Simi online, if you're wondering where that discrepancy is coming from.
Yeah, and we have checked. She wants Noffy on the screen, but she's happy for us to call her Simi.
Yeah.
So, okay, that's what that is. Here is the scores, the 22-15, as you say, the 7-point gap. When Raven and I cast the first day, we were sort of thinking 7 points felt a lot, but since we've been watching this tournament in progress, 7 points is not a lot unless you lose by 7 points twice. It's actually a sort of standard. You win a lobby, you get about 7 points. We've seen some closer ones, we've seen some different ones, but if they win the next lobby, they'll probably equal the scores, give or take.
Yeah, first, it seems like that should be a big gap, right? Because the team went 8th, 7th, and 6th, but because of that bonus that you get for the first, with it not just being a straight representative breakdown of the points, that does close the gap a little bit, and it means that, a more mixed-looking lobby might still be able to close that gap for Europe. If not close the gap back to Europe, back to even, at least close the gap back to the point where everything is to play for in the final lobby. Like, Europe are not dead and buried in this one by any means.
Absolutely not, and we are going to get on with it pretty quickly. We're going to take a short break now, and we will be back with this very soon. Told you it'd be a quick one. We're into game number 2. Let's have a quick look what we can catch. Tao on the Mutinous.
Island Cat picking up a George, which, as has been mentioned by myself, is widely dependent on what the tribes are in the lobby. So that makes me suspect that we are looking at some combination of Quillboars and mechs if George is being used as a pick there, although some of the other heroes did not look particularly attractive. RDU picked up a Galakron, Sunglitters picking up that Diablo, the guaranteed offer, of course. And we do see Quillboars at least in the shop there for RDU, which does go to make some sense. And with the bans up there being the Murlocs, the Demons, and the Dragons, it is another Quillboar mechs lobby, which makes that George an absolute premium pick. We will have to see if Island Cat can produce the pyrotechnics that Dog did with the hero in the previous lobby.
Yeah, and talking of pyrotechnics, RDU on Galakron sounds like an exciting prospect to me. The Radu's way of just pushing things as much as possible. I wonder how high. You'd expect him to stop on 4 like a rational human being, like you were describing earlier, but anything might happen when Radu's on Galakron.
Kale Thus in our lobby is not something I was expecting to see a great deal of. Very, very mediocre hero. For a while was a decent tempo pick, got you a good amount of top 4s, but I think is falling way short of that average these days as some of these huge power scaling and spiking heroes have really come into play.
Yeah, Ticketus for Evelyn and Kael'thas for PF. They sound like they're battling it out already to just survive as long as possible. No particular scaling at all, unless I've got Ticketus wrong, but I'm not a Ticketus fan at all.
Nope, agreed. I also think Ticketus is, fighting it out for weakest hero in the lobby, as you were describing.
Island Cat choosing to freeze the Acolyte there, which takes away a slight chance of the triple, but obviously showing the power of just going for Avenge, especially in this particular make-up of lobby.
Yeah, and I think just planning on how to curve out with the hero power as well, right? Like, obviously, George can level on turn 2 and then always buy 1 hero power 1 on 5 gold to spend that 5 gold, but he can continue to do that same thing, right? By freezing something he's guaranteed happy to buy in the shop, he knows he still has that curve available to him very nicely. And since he got double Micro Mummy start, early Divine Shields actually scale very quickly, right? With those constant attack buffs hopping back and forwards from the Micro Mummy.
Tank Boy is back.
Tank number... Ooh,
I don't know.
9? 9,
That's if you
I
only
think,
count
for
2
RDU.
games. Yeah, he had 8 or
Yes.
something in 1 game, yeah. And Simi there was picking up the triple, it's not the triple, but the 3-drop on Cookie early and hit a Deflecto, so she's in another strong position already. Just a tank.
RDU takes the level with the tank as well, looking to refill the board on Tavern 2 next turn with 6 gold. I imagine we'll be looking in the region of a double buy next turn, maybe foregoing the hero power for an extra turn or 2 and looking for some more win conditions later on as he gets up the Tavern tiers, but we shall see how he chooses to play this one out. Nope, just kidding. We're going over to Aveline on Ticketus because it is the first prize turn.
And I think these days it's almost exclusively money, right? The other 2 things sort of fell over as time went by.
Yeah, Flag actually got nerfed because of how oppressive it ended up being for a little while during the prize lobbies, the prize meta lobbies itself. But still with 3 minions on board as a minimum, it is pretty good. This sequencing is a little bit interesting though, because I think you would have tried to be a bit more selective with where those buffs were landing. You could have guaranteed buff the 2/6 with the Flag, for example, before playing extra stuff onto the board. So, question marks there for sure. Sunglitters, it is now her turn to try and build that murder board, that turn 8 delete half the lobby board that we have been seeing come out quite consistently from Dablo in these boards. During our Twitter conversation with Celestalon and RDU and whoever else was involved in that, Sun did make a good point to me about how the adapted meta of this tournament being different from a ladder meta was actually bringing her around to Diablo a little bit as well, so no great surprise to see her picking it up.
RDU, you're not supposed to tell your teammates who you are. You can't have a tank on turn 4 like always. And yep, the Sun is taking this one down. She's taking. Of course, he snipes it. Sun's eyes just. This might be the main fight, right?
Neil, stop. Have a think again. Once more, tanks aren't random.
That's twice in 3 days I managed. I was really good through the rest of the today. I knew that they did that thing and just default back. She won every other fight, though, by the look of it.
Yes, still got the full hand, which is huge. That's pretty much genuinely, like, that's an important thing to call out. Obviously, I'm making fun of you because you're dumb and keep forgetting how tanks work. But that is an interaction that you should know in general, because it's one of the few ways where that first wave of Diablo fights with the 5-5, you don't get prizes. It's when people have tanks, right? Because generally that 5-5 is going to be the biggest thing on your board. It just so happened that Sun had a 5-6 that was going to soak the first shot. But generally that 5-5 is going to have the most health. So the very first thing, the very first two things that die on your opponent's board, if they've tripled into an early tank, it is going to get shot. But that is a rare occurrence, right? Galakrond gets their hands on tank significantly quicker than most heroes usually can.
We did get a brief glimpse there of how Kael'thas has gone down in the rankings. Like, it looks like he's done nothing wrong on the Kael'thas we just saw. But already when you flick to other boards, it's just behind.
See if George has made any significant progress. Not in particular, no. Like, not that there is anything wrong with this. An arm and a bunch of divine shields is a little bit old school, but it can still get some work done. But when I say significant progress, I'm looking for those gem splitters. I'm looking for those grease bots, and George is not looking at those things currently as much as he would be liking to.
Yeah, blast from the past. Just an arm and a legacy. Alright, Tao on the Mutinous gets the second Divine Shield. This is a big deal because you stop missing, although it doesn't look like he's been missing anyway. Really helps to have those Divine Shield buffs on Mutinous. That's pretty much the only game plan for Mutinous early on, at least. Get Divine Shields, make them large. At least that's how I've always seen it.
Yeah, there is kind of the next level to that, whereas if you're in an Elementals lobby as well, you can still go for that that Lightspawn plan. Very similar to the Fellbat trick that we were seeing before, right, with Collins, where you do get those big Elementals in your shop, and then every turn you can buy one of them and then just eat its stats onto whatever Divine Shields that you're holding onto your board. So that's kind of the evolved Mutinous strategy, as the the elemental idea has become more and more powerful with the addition of Lightspawn. But certainly you are correct. Core of the Mutinous strategy is to find Divine Shields and dump stats on them.
La has got the makings of an Avenge strat going. Look how his minions are kind of in a weird order. That's because he's going to just buff as much as possible onto that deflector bot going forwards.
Right.
Try and turn that into a real minion and then switcheroo and have it at the front later on.
Yeah, and I would say later on is very later on in this position. I think if this is all the milk he's going to have access to, he will milk this green thumb deflectobot combo for quite some time from this position.
How many pints are you expecting?
How many pints of milk? In at least 25. Like we're talking a number that you would be more comfortable measuring in gallons.
Wow.
Yeah.
That means that both sort of Americas and, I don't know, the British section here can understand what we're talking about. That's great. Everyone else is going, well, how many litres is this? That's some litres, I tell you. Right, La has got a 9-6 at the end of all that. That's pretty good going. The Sneed is doing his job. The milking is milking. And that's just the first round of it as well. Like you say, this is going to go on for several turns, and that thing's going to get huge.
Yeah, and this is just why Sneed is such a powerful hero. Sneed be Sneeding. Like, you can afford to, quote, make yourself weak by putting yourself into optimal Avenge board positions and still win most fights because of the insane amount of tempo you just get early by being Sneed. Essentially, you get to buy a minion for 1 gold every single turn and get it immediately on no delay. Like Rafam gets a 1 gold minion on 1 turn delay. Maev gets a 1 gold minion on 3 turn delay. Sneed gets it immediately. It just happens to be hidden inside a box on their board that you have to wait a little bit to unveil. But it's so much tempo in the early game that not only do they just have the sheer quantity of minions that makes Avenge powerful, they also have the strength through the early and mid game that they can milk Avenge for so much longer than most other heroes can and still get away with it.
Looks like this might be Sun's turn to shine. She has got all the makings of a big comp there, especially with all those treasures protected going into next turn, which will be the brawl, the boss fight. And she has got that light spawn set up. Not quite ideal milking setup yet, but just an acolyte away from turning this into a pretty good looking comp.
See how this goes. The fight on the other side is the Mutinous, and she is going to be unfavored. But again, you kind of expect that when you are setting up for these Avenge boards. If you are not Sneed, she will just... I was just about to say it. I couldn't even get the caster curse out in time. I was just going to say she just needs to dodge 1 or 2 attacks going to the right-hand side of her board. And at the very earliest available moment, that light spawn bit the dust.
Yeah, and we've talked about Sun's results in quite a negative way because she has had quite bad results, but she has had a lot of that going on in this whole tournament so far. Part of the reason for her 8th places has just been everything that can go wrong has been going wrong, but here is the brawl, and she's in a decent position for it. Let's see her load up all of these buffs, I think, to the max and see what she can get out of this one.
How many different words have you used to describe these fights so far? You said
the brawl,
like
the pit fight, the
pit fight, brawl. Yeah, there's been a few of them so far for sure.
It's not accidental. I do some things okay. It's not all garbage.
Well, I'll wait with bated breath to find out what they are.
I think that's it. I think you've now caught me at the running out of words.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Right, Tao Tao's build has got the full mutinous stuff going on, but it does actually need to make some big things to put on those shields now.
Ding! Sorry if I may interrupt you ever so slightly. That is a gem splitter on Island Cat's side now on the George, and he actually already has the Agam, picks up a second gem splitter, and he's doing things a little bit in reverse. This is not quite the same board that we saw from Dog, but this is a ton of gemeration being dumped onto an Agam that already has the Golden Divine Shield here.
Very good.
What did I do?
Gemeration? Or is that just a standard phrase that
That's
I've
a fairly common
somehow?
term, I think. Yeah, I think that's a thing people just say.
How did I miss that? I know, that's because I was playing Mercenaries for 2 weeks. I remember now. Right.
So, based on this tournament, you played, what, 3 games of Mercenaries in that time?
Yeah, and a game of Battlegrounds.
Nice. Nicely done.
But they're all maxed. Not quite. I'm not you, unfortunately. Sun did manage to get a pretty good build-up here. Still only got the 1 taunt, but that is something at least. Why is the taunt so far forward?
I mean, because it's huge, I imagine. Like, she still wanted to prioritize actually attacking with it by some regard. But now for a second time, the light spawn bites the dust. And you saw the fear in her eyes as this fight started. Because obviously, in some form, she is clashing against everyone in the lobby. But this is the featured fight that actually awards health loss to her if she loses. And she was up against someone who'd full tempoed with a ground shaker on that board as well in order to try and be as competitive as possible. And she was a little bit lucky to get out of it. She was favored, but it wasn't like 100% fight from that position to get out with more treasures intact. But once again, brutally, she got that light spawn sniped immediately, which means that her actual scaling, her progression towards a real win condition is still some way off in the distance right now.
She did have a silver lining in the first shot. There is that Argus that's going to stop that problem at source for the next few turns. Just get something out of in the way and stop that thing from getting murdered. Every single time anyone gets a look at it, it just falls over. So she's lost 2 turns of milking. You can sort of expect to lose one of them at some point when you're open goal like that. Go on.
Ding yet again on Island Cat's side as he hits that golden Gem Splitter on the other side. That's twice now. Two George games in Quillbore lobbies. Both players have hit extremely rapid golden Gem Splitters. This is certainly on the high side of variance for George, but this is a good demonstration of what George is capable of in these kinds of ladders. Going back to what you were saying about Sun, though, yes, she has taunts now, and that's fantastic. She also has 32 health. Also fantastic. So she can afford to milk for quite a long time, abusing the fact that actually she kept damage cap intact by not doing the same thing that every other Diablo we've seen did and killing multiple people on that turn that have just passed. So by keeping that damage cap intact, she can actually abuse that for a few turns with this Avenging Ellie. However, just in terms of raw number of turns, she is a little bit behind. You would really like to have seen 5, 6, 7, 8 procs on your Lightspawn by this point, and she's got nowhere close to that, which means, hopefully for her sake, second Avenging Ellie in the near future so that she can actually catch up a little bit more rapidly, because in terms of Avenge board states, she's got a pretty fantastic looking one overall. So if she can find enough time, she will get there.
And if she gets there by turn 12, that could be brutal for most of the rest of the lobby. Like, she will kill all of the people weaker than her in one go. There's one or two who look like they're going to be ahead of her, but if she gets enough off this in those turns, then she can just buy the elementals and put them on the board in the way that we don't usually talk about, and just get rid of anybody who's lagging behind at the bottom and just get on with getting a good top 3 or top 4 finish.
I do think if I was being hypercritical here, by the way, I would have put the Replicating Menace before the Taunted Eggs, because I think you were always going to get enough attacks to go off to the point where the eggs would get attacked through, and then you would rather have the Replicating Menace attacking before the 8/8 egg drops, just to be able to fill your board back up to that 7 minions in play. But honestly, yet again, the Lightspawn got sniped on almost the first possible opportunity where it could come down. So Sun is still way behind where she could be on procs overall. Some pretty serious low rolling going on this game.
Yeah, absolutely.
As if it wasn't brutal enough, the board is filling up, but okay, that is the first major high roll that she needed to be able to get out of this. Now we're going to see what these froggies are doing, because a value trade here means that she is actually going to come out of this with a much needed tie, and that is potential extra milking turns for that Lightspawn if she needs it. But there is a dead cookie in the lobby, which means damage cap is now switched off. It's possible, unlikely, but possible, that Sunglitters could be so weak with her milking board that she could take 32 in a single turn from this point.
Ouch! Yeah, I think her best plan is probably to go all in on turn 12 and just beat all of the people she can at that point. And
so you're saying, like, milk Ellie's up to as much as you can before that point, and then just plan to be as strong as possible on that turn 12,
and just probably die on turn 12, but take some people out with you, and just hope you play one of the people you're better than, and kill all of the ones that you are better than, and then die on turn 13.
I can see that, yeah. Which probably means starting to buy big Ellie's on turn 11, right? Because you can't go from nothing to 12 in one turn, so that might be a decent way to go about it. One more turn of hard milking this turn, which is turn 10. Start to buy Ellie's on turn 11, keep some more guaranteed milkers on your board, and then fill out the rest of the remaining board on turn 12 with big Ellie's. I think it's probably a fairly smart way of going about it. Look for those multi-kills on that turn 12 Diablo fight.
Telltale on the mute says, running into the problem we were talking about a few turns ago, where got all the Divine Shields, got the stuff, but now he's run out of big things to put on the Divine Shields, because that was the start of the plan. No other plan really emerged. So it's carried him this far, but he's suddenly starting just to get a little bit caught up by everybody. Who's on the Galacon? That's RDU, right? Looking at this board on the other side of La La La.
Yeah.
Yep. That's looking like it's a good board in the making.
It is indeed. Has lent into the beasts. Looks like he was probably hero powering, probably missed on the 4. It's almost exactly the hypothetical that you posed to me, right? Where he's probably looked for a 4, didn't hit, and then leveled up one more, hit a 5, picked up a Mama Bear, and gone from there.
Yeah, I think so. Oh no, actually he did hit, right? He hit the tank.
Oh, he did. That's right. He had the very early tank early on. Yeah,
But he's
so
done that
just been...
since, probably. Yeah.
Yes.
That was quite a long time ago. Picking up another win there. Looking pretty strong, actually, RDU once again. And Island Cat looking pretty strong once again. I say once again in terms of the tournament. Obviously, in the first lobby, RDU had a bad one.
Oh, and Tautau on the Mutinous does bite the dust there as well. So that's a Mutinous and the Cookie out of the lobby. Aveline still hanging in there on the Ticketus as well. Looking to have a board of a very similar power level to what we saw from RDU on the Mama Bear. Aveline does whiff completely on those 5-drop discovers though. Lots of potential 5-drop synergy that you can get. Second Mama Bear, another Pale Scale. Baron Rivendare would be lovely with this board as well, but she did not find any of that good stuff.
How do you feel about this Hydra? A little bit too late, a little bit too small is my gut.
In comparison to the size of everything that you currently have on your board, yes, I would agree. I do think Aveline is kind of missing a trick at this point, rolling away too much gold, though. After that Discover missed, I think there's a readjusting needed where she said, okay, after that triple's gone, I can't really improve on 4 anymore, so I have to go up to 5 and look for Barons and Mama Bears manually from that point. So I think she's probably just spending too many turns rolling away gold on turn 4, but it's hard to say with any real authority because we haven't really watched enough of her game to get a holistic view of what she's been doing.
PF just seems to be using any sort of Battlegrounds basic principles to keep our live here. He's finding as much tempo each turn as possible. The number of cards being switched in and out of this comp is quite ridiculous at this point. Every turn, just finding what's going to keep him into the next fight.
It's so dumb! I'm glad we've finally seen it, because I've been banging this drum for such a significant amount of time. Finally someone bought the ghoul, and their reward for the ghoul is to be 83% unfavoured in the fight against George. Like, yes, nice ghoul, buddy.
Yeah.
Oh my god. George in Mech Quilboar is just so toxic, I swear.
I'm glad we got to see the proof of it. I wondered what you were giggling about because I was watching the other side. I've just been watching PF struggles basically through this last few turns. But yeah, Island Cat
literally now just dropping blood gems on the floor, can't actually hold the amount of value that he's generating on every single turn for the Agam that he has on the far left that's going to survive this fight and kill the Sneed. A Sneed that's supposed to be strong at this point in the game. A Sneed that if you listen to the internet, they will tell you is the most toxic hero in the game. No, my friend. That smiling Divine Shield boy down there is the real source of toxicity in the game of Hearthstone Battlegrounds.
Island Cat looking slightly more interested at this stage than Dog was when it was all over, but that's because it's slightly less all over than it was when Dog was at this point.
Yes. If Island Cat could go from Agam to Golden Agam, then he might be in the same level of absolutely sewn-up game that Dog was in, but I don't think he is there quite yet. The Necrolite is a very nice pickup, but weirdly, not as important for George as it is for every other hero in the game, because what every other hero in the game needs to do is transfer their stats off their Agam onto a minion with Divine Shield. Now, Lorinda, I know you're not the most perceptive of people at the best of times, but I think if you look at Island Cat's board, you could probably figure out why that's slightly redundant.
Because he has all but one Divine Shield on the board.
That's right.
I was giggling in the middle of that. Yeah.
I just to quickly say, I do still think he will end up dumping the stats onto the Mechrel instead, though, because that's ideal to be in this position. Yep, exactly. The Mechrel is the one that can get multiple Divine Shields in that spot, which is very nice.
Why not have 2 builds for the price of 1, huh? When you got the Mechrel Shield build and just the George Agam build. I was giggling because PF once again was messing around, and he ended up with a Peggy on the left, and somewhere in the middle is an Eliza, just to generate a little bit more attack value. He's just literally living turn to turn, hand to mouth. Look at this comp at the top. It's just the things that work this turn.
And it looks like Sun has basically done the exact strategy we were talking about, right? Seems to be peaking in power around this turn. That's a fantastic hit for Sun. The Divine Shield hitting minimal value, and that means she is picking up kills here. there is a real chance from her perspective that she could be winning the lobby right now, but she does not quite know how strong a couple of her opponents are. The George easily destroys the board that she presented, but still, I think with how clearly low Sun rolled in this lobby based on the fights that we saw every single time, that light spawn being sniped as a matter of fast order every single time, I think she's done very well to come out of this with a third or better at this point.
Did you notice the irony there that she sold everything, bought all the elementals she could, like we suggested, like we were hoping she would, and then the light spawn stood alone at the end of that battle and milked to the absolute max?
Brilliant. No, I had not noticed that, but yes, that is well worth pointing out.
Who needs to set up all this clever avenge stuff? Just let Bob look after you. She does sell the light spawn because the Nomi is now her primary scaling. And now she's got into the top 3, she can take some chances, right?
Yeah, I think if she wants maximum chance of converting third to second, she should know that George is going to be a monster this turn. But I also don't think there's any real point in selling Nomi for something that isn't a ghoul in this position. I think if you found a ghoul, dump Nomi, buy ghoul, kill the George, take second would be a very viable strategy at that point. We can see it wouldn't work because of everything I've been talking about this entire time and George being super toxic and he'd win that fight anyway. But from Sun's perspective, that's the strategy that might work, but not finding a ghoul there, I don't think there was really any point in dumping the Nomi because you can just use it as a bumper anyway, right? Which is what she ended up doing in that situation.
Most Battlegrounds
she's
fights.
super dead, by the way.
Yeah, I was going to say, most Battlegrounds fights, you eyeball it and you might get it wrong. This is a bunch of 30-30 Divine Shields against a bunch of 30-30s. It's just very easy to see who's winning that fight every single time.
Just the small matter of 27 damage, yes, okay. So what's RDU doing over here? Does he have any hope of coping with this? Not without a ghoul, bare minimum. That certainly has to be step one. From that point, this board is getting a parrot. So plus 8, 8, plus 8, plus 8, plus 16, plus 16, plus 24, plus 24 as a minimum currently.
That's enough.
There's a chance, yes. Plus ghoul, he has a chance. Without ghoul, obviously not close.
Yeah. The trouble is he also does need to look after the stats on the way. I think the way this George has just destroyed the last 6 or 7 fights, RDU will have a very good insight. I mean, you know you need ghoul anyway, but you have a good insight into the fact that it's a strong George. George has done the thing. So he does need to kind of be a bit careful.
Yeah, okay. Good boy, RDU. I don't think he could have bought that Reborn Rattler, even though it was extremely tempting. He knows what he's rolling for. Now he hasn't hit it. Now he can think about subbing something out for a parrot, but I'm not sure what improves his board from this position if he replaces it with the Macaw here.
It's swap Goldwyn for a parrot. It's the same thing, but if you live, you've got a triple parrot chance.
Yeah, fair, I suppose.
It's not very thrilling, is it?
It's not, no. But I do think he played the turn very well. He understood what his priority was. There was certainly a couple of things that turn that created small incremental improvements to his board. But as I mentioned earlier, he didn't need incremental improvements. He needed a total revolution, and that only came from a ghoul that turn against George. So he rolled down everything he possibly has to be able to get there.
Yeah, just looking at this, it does look like if he found the ghoul, it would have been pretty tight.
Yeah, I think there was a chance, yeah, but I think the Hydra would have had to have found a perfect attack, and I think this is the kind of thing that I don't really like to call out unless I actually watch the fight, but I think the taunts are positioned in such a way that the Hydra would never have got a good attack off. And we saw Island Cat in the end there even positioning a very clever selfless hero over far right, so that when the Hydra he would expect his beast opponent to have attacked into his taunt, which would be pretty much a guaranteed thing to happen at that point, the selfless would then come back down with more divine shields. So I think even with the ghoul I would have favoured Island Cat, but it certainly would have been a fight that we could talk about as opposed to that which was an absolute monstrous one-sided blowout.
The thing with Island Cat is we've seen him now win lobbies with 4 different builds over the 3 days. He had the big elementals, he had the big pirates, and there was one other, and the George. The one other, I can't remember. I'm not going to go there in the middle of a cast. I didn't have it researched. I'm just trying to do it from memory. But yeah, he is just murdering people on all different levels. And again, I'm not like really in with how the China system worked, but I saw the standings, and he won by what looked like a really large margin in that Battlegrounds League over in China. So showing us why he did that, and that over 15 weeks of points, that wasn't like just one tournament, so there was a sample size here. It just looks like he's been doing this for 15 weeks earlier in the year.
He looks like a really, really good player. Like, just straight hands in the air, he looks like he's really, really good at Battlegrounds. And I think it's easy for me to say because, again, we talk about like stylistic choices in Battlegrounds. I feel like Island Cat is a player who's very close to me stylistically, really likes APM comps, is quite greedy, looks for very aggressive triples. Me adapting to this Tavern 4 meta has taken quite some time because I really like going for higher tiers, and it looks like Island Cat has liked to do that as well. So when you see someone playing similarly to how you think you would, it's very easy to vibe with them as a good player, much more so than recognizing someone who plays very differently from you is also a good player. But the Island Cat just looks really good. I struggle to analyze it much further beyond that. I think he's a fantastic player, but I think bigger story to take away from that before we set up for our final lobby is Europe did do a lot of the necessary work to bring that back closer to parity, because both RDU and Sun landed in that top 3, even though it was another Chinese player in Island Cat taking down the lobby as a whole.
I am just looking at the points though, and because Simi came 8th and Aveline came 6th, they've actually got 3 points further behind.
Oh,
incredibly,
no,
just because of the
yeah,
bottom
okay.
end, the other two didn't manage to keep it up. So it doesn't look right. You look at the lobby, you think it's fine for Europe, but just those middling points when your teammate wins are so huge.
No, you're absolutely right, which means it's going to need to be a massive final lobby now for the Europe team if they're not going to go down to another Battlegrounds defeat here, because that is a big gap to overcome. A 10-point deficit is a really big deficit. You can just eyeball that, look at the results of the 2 lobbies that we've just played. Neither of those are a 10-point gap, and Europe now have to turn it around in a single lobby, which is going to be a very, very tricky thing for them to do.
It is, but if RDU and Sun can continue doing what they're doing, and one of the other, I mean, Simi won, so if Simi can get another huge result, for instance, it is very doable. The points kind of double. Each time you move up a place, you're pushing someone else down a place. And as long as that's not your teammate, because your teammates are hanging in there as well, you can get it. 10 points is doable, but yes, it needs to be a good performance. So I think we're going to. I was nearly went to talk all the way through there because we were having some very quick breaks, but we are going to go to a very short break, and we're back to see if Europe can overturn it in just a moment. And we're back, and we are in game again. I'm get used to this in a hurry. Okay, la on the Sneed. Got a cookie in the bottom left for PF. Oh, Hook Tusk on win at the top. Shame we don't know what the tribes are to make that an easier call for us.
Yeah, definitely need some tribe information before you can call that one definitively. 2 of the absolute premium top of S tier heroes in certain lobbies. Panda tends to be more generically strong across a wider range of lobbies and minion types, whereas Hooktusk peaks higher in double token lobbies and valleys lower in some no token lobbies. So ending up on the Panda here for Tao Tao.
Right, I am not happy with the RDU pick, but I knew he was going to do it because I know how he rates the hero. So you can tell me why he's right and I'm wrong. He picked Ragnaros over Omu here.
Wait, really?
Yep, and I knew he would because he likes Ragnaros.
So hold on, let me just catch up real quick. That's Ellie's Beasts Dragons out of the lobby. So it was a single token lobby in terms of pure tokens, Murlocs, and
that is a Ragnaros,
Beasts,
right? Which at the bottom. I'm not misreading the hero.
That is a Ragnaros, yes, at the bottom.
Yep, so that's what he picked.
Yeah, so just going back to this, so we'll cover the Panda pick. I think that's fine. I think that is debatable. Player preference, player experience, player skill with the respective heroes. I think you can justify either. Hooktusk and Panda, I think that's very, very close. But Ragnaros versus Omu, that one I certainly struggle with, and I would be an Omu gamer all day of the week. So I imagine there's probably another Twitter fight with RDU incoming over this one.
I know that behind Diablo, if you had to pick 2 heroes that I knew he was going to pick the unusual one, they are the 2. He despises Omu quite strongly, and he is a giant Ragnaros fan. He's been playing it quite a lot. I'm not quite sure what his results have been, but I guess we'll find out on this sample size of 1 in the Lorinda and TJ way. This is all that matters, this one game. But they need a high roll as well, and I mean, they're both high roll heroes to some degree, but Omu is good at high rolling.
Omu is good at high rolling, yes. It sounds like a ridiculous statement, but I do actually understand what you're saying.
Good. As long as you understand, it doesn't matter what all the thousands of viewers are thinking right now. Right, but Radu is going to try and get this sorted out. It'd be interesting to see how he goes about it.
PF on the Cook, looking like he is diverting to Demons here. Also staying on 2. No 3-on-3 here for Cookie, looking like he is just going to tempo into these Murlocs a little bit. Deciding, this is just flexibility, right? Like, I'm sure when he bought a token and he leveled to 2-on-2, he was fully intending to go 3-on-3. However, he then saw the shop and went, I like the look of that stuff, I'll just tempo it out, I'll be Murlocs. I think it would have been an easier decision if literally the entire shop was Murloc, so he could then shoot a Murloc as well to guarantee that kind of potential situation coming out in the end. But since he had those Murlocs locked in anyway, he ended up building out a massively aggressive board with what he did early on, and the ability to continually generate Murlocs with Cookie, I think, is ever so slightly underrated, because I think Murlocs, I don't know what the best way to phrase this is, Murlocs have the strongest tribal synergy in essence of, like, when you just keep getting more Murlocs when you are Murlocs, they add the most to your board in comparison to just getting more dragons when you're dragons or getting more beasts when you're beasts, right? Like, basically every Murloc improves the Murlocs that you already have when you continue cycling them through. So your chances of whiffing on discovers when you're playing Murlocs are extremely slim.
Yeah, I think of them, even though they're not this at all to some degree, but they're like the beginner class. Like, you can't go wrong. You buy a Murloc and it's just going to help you with your other Murlocs. That's why you see some streamers just stream Murlocs.
And it's no great surprise either that I remember at BlizzCon when the mode was first revealed, there was a community tavern area where you could go in, play Battlegrounds for 30 minutes or so, come back out. There's a queue to get in and out. They were cycling people in and out at the convention, making sure everyone got the opportunity. Basically, everyone I spoke to who came out when I spoke to them. They're like, yeah, I played like 2 games. Oh, yeah, what's it like? It's like, yeah, it seems really good, but Murlocs are overpowered. And like they hadn't even discovered at that point that the idea was to get Megasaur and put Divine Shield poison on them with Bran or anything. Like, they were literally just buying Murlocs on Tavern 1 and Tavern 2 and just saying that's overpowered, which, you know, goes to show the kind of thing you were talking about.
How do you feel about orcs in Mercenaries?
Yes, very similar thing. Right?
Okay, and they were powerful for 1 day while people worked out the meta. Alright, let's have a look what Simi's got going on as Diablo. It's looking okay for her, but okay's all it is.
Okay. Yeah, it's going to be the tie, and it's going to be a loss of a treasure there for Simi, which is a big deal indeed. Again, just in case you're joining us after the break and you weren't here beforehand, Europe need a massive lobby here. They are currently 10 points behind in this individual Battlegrounds fight against China, and in the standings overall, everything is so tight that the results of everything in this final matchup between Europe and China are incredibly meaningful. So there is a 10-point deficit that Europe need to overcome right now for the good of not just their Battleground standings, but for the good of the overall standings of the tournament as a whole.
Right, let's see what Evelyn can get done on the right-hand side. There's a triple waiting to be bought, but she needs to plan how she wants to buy it. This is the easy part. I imagine the next part's easy. You get a 4 and hit something good.
Also agreed, yes. I do, you know, I believe in the assessment that this is the easy part. This is the no-brainer. You level hold here, and then you reassess on the following turn. I do think it will likely end up being a 4-drop for Evelyn here, but certainly I don't think there's any particular decision on this turn. Going back over to Simi/Nothi. Not the Diablo turn that she was looking for. That is not a lot of strength that she picked up. It looks like she lost the 5-5 in the majority of fights, only ending up with 6 treasures overall, which is barely going to be enough to carry her through to the next prize fight at this point. So she might just find herself being a little bit weak for the coming turns.
Yeah, and she's going to be in a bit of a dilemma because she needs to get up to 4 so she can go for tanks, so she can go for any event you can name, obviously. We haven't really seen many Nest Matrons in the whole tournament, I feel. I feel like we haven't seen that one done very many times. But she has the setup for that, but she doesn't have the Avenge to go with any of it at the moment.
Yeah, we have seen a few, but they've been very blink and you'll miss it. We haven't really seen, for example, like a featured player with a Nest Matron on their board for 3 or 4 or 5 turns, but out of the corner of my eye, I have just been logging matrons on people's boards as like we've flicked through multiple people in 1 turn, for example, but then it's gone when we come back to them 2 turns later. So it seems like quite a few players have just cycled in a Nest Matron, but not deemed it high enough value to actually sit there milking the Nest Matron for multiple turns, which with how aggressive and tempo-y these lobbies have been, I do think that makes a lot of sense.
I did wonder if for Evelyn here, she may have had to settle for the big Fernal here and just get some numbers on the board, but she did choose to go for the bot instead.
Yeah, Big Fernal got pretty big pretty quick, right, with double Icky Imp on board already and Prisoner in shop as well. That could have very easily been picked up there alongside it as well. I think that would have been a lot of tempo, something that would have been very much worth considering from my perspective as well. Greasebot certainly has a higher ceiling, but it is something that requires you to hit, and things that require you to hit on Millhouse are dangerous because you can't roll for them. You are basically forced to buy the majority of what is in front of you until you hit 10 gold, really, with Millhouse as a general rule, which means Evelyn can't really go rolling for multiple Divine Shields as other heroes could do with this Greasebot.
But they do need a high roll, we've talked about already. They need a big lobby, so maybe that's at the back of her mind. She just wanted to go for something that if it works, great. If it doesn't, well, there's not a lot to lose when you're already behind. If you low roll, you might as well go for the big one. So let's see how that one works out.
Yeah, agreed. I can't hate on that perspective too much whatsoever. If she feels like she needs to go for something with a higher ceiling because of the position the team are in overall, I do think that's good. Good tournament sense and good forward planning if that is the goal of what she's doing.
Telltale's fight against Sneed. That's just good, isn't it? I still can't quite
just a good hero.
Why it's good. You look at it, you think, Well, you don't know what your synergy is going to be from turn to turn, but it turns out that having one Reno hero at some point, having one secret that stops you dying at some point, adding up all those things just adds up to a good hero.
Now, reversing what we said earlier with Avalyn from the China perspective, they just have to defend, right? Like, if all of them pick up some kind of 4th/5th place strategy, they will win this round against Europe, right? So things like Sneed just leaning into Baron and just hoping that's good enough to get you into a top 4 is certainly something that China might be looking at here. But I do think as a team, China have been quite greedy and win condition focused overall. So it might be something that's a little bit unnatural to their playstyle overall. And I do also think that picking up a Sefin, again, it's a card that says Avenge on it. That's the golden rule that I keep talking about when you are playing Sneed. Is never going to be too far from wrong in this spot.
Yeah, you also have to be careful not to stray too far from what you would do naturally. Otherwise, you might just end up playing badly. So yeah, just do the thing you would do. But definitely worth thinking about there.
Any consideration from Lala to sub in a 3rd Murloc here instead of the Pirate? Because I don't know exactly what his arrangement of hero powers is here and whether he has, enough procs to be able to get that many Poison Murlocs through in a single turn, but something to consider at least.
Yeah, who's he against? Cookie, okay. Just briefly zoned out, just like you do sometimes, or like I do sometimes, just to be fair. There's one. That's a hit.
Yeah, almost guaranteed to get the 2nd proc now on the Sefin. Oh no, that's not a real Murloc, right? I think that just came out of a drop, so I think he just ended up getting baited here. Yeah, he's going to lose the Sefin value. I believe that was just a drop off one of his minions. I did look down just to make some notes real quick, but we'll find out when it transitions back to his board state, unless we get baited by the... Oh, come on!
And it's in the same position. I thought it was the same war leader just for a second. Right, so Island Cat, we're looking at Island Cat, who hasn't got a comp for the first time in what feels like the entire tournament. I'd love to see how he progresses this.
Oh, RDU on the rag with double tank. Looking very rosy. He is well up into the double figures of tanks rolled this tournament now, the way things have been going.
Only Radu can take a hero that requires your last minion to have like a divine shield or an ability. Just put a tank there anyway and kill people with it.
Yeah, just buff the tank health up nice and high so that when you fight tank mirrors, your tank will die first because it has too much health. Seems good.
Oh yeah, because that card has words on it.
It does, yeah. Would you like to inform everyone how tank works for people who might not know?
I'm too embarrassed to admit that at 1 point, but 2 points in this week, I have just completely blanked on the fact that it actually has card text. Island Cat's still scrambling about, but he seems to be turning it into just some tempo until something nice happens to me.
And again, not the worst thing in the world, right? If you are the Chinese team in this position, because they are playing defense right now. They're the ones that can just be happy with 4th places and 5th places and so on in this spot. But once again, we find ourselves back here in a jugglers and tanks kind of lobby. This is very much what things look like throughout day 1 and the first half of day 2. Things did transition a little bit later on into more of a conventional ladderish meta where big scaling comps were being dominant in the late game. But now as things have come down to the absolute clutch, we are reverting to type, and it is demons and tanks coming out to really be as tempo focused as possible.
And once again, it's in a lobby without elementals, I believe, right? So that seems to be part of the common meta theme. I think, like you discussed in depth earlier, some of it is deliberate. They're just going for those because of the meta to cut off Avenge, but also it's far easier to do if you're not facing 30-30 elementals early on.
Island Cat goes down on the Mutinous. Who's the George? The George is Sun Glitters, so Europe actually do not make any significant headway with that exchange, losing one player from each side. In fact, that's not even neutral. As I mentioned in the very similar situation yesterday, that actually favors China because the smaller the number of players in the lobby overall, if parity remains, the harder and harder it becomes for Europe to be able to separate themselves out to a significant degree.
Is worth pointing out on this occasion, it is a +1, not a -1. I do agree with the sentiment. Just want to point that out. So it is down to 9 points with the 6 remaining characters needed. So Europe needing a very strong finish in this now 6-player lobby. And Simi is looking under a lot of pressure to me. Although she has gold into the juggler. No, she hasn't. She's reborn the juggler.
Yeah, already had Golden Juggler through the previous boss fight, but now has dropped that Reborn on it as well. She actually was in a relatively unique position in terms of Diablo games where she got more prizes from her second boss fight than she did from her first. That's not something that you see too often, right? Because normally, if you don't get 8 to 10 off your first fight, then you are going to be too weak moving forward to actually be smashing people in the second one. But having picked up a Golden Juggler, again, I think is a very smart adaptation from Simi. She is playing out this this final matchup against China very, very well overall, I would say. And she is keeping her team in there and Europe in there with a fighting chance at the moment.
I really want to see PF's next turn. He's just picked up a Hogger. He has a board full of decent-sized pirates, and he has money. Next turn could go nutty with a double Eggy on the board as well. Just having a look across though, and Telltale's shaking his head. Looks okay to me. There's a lot more juggles still to come.
You sure about that?
Yeah, the juggles do juggle pretty jugglily.
He is going for the jugular, you could say. You probably shouldn't, but you could.
Right, so another survivor Simeon just seems to be getting stronger, not weaker, like you suggested, which is bizarre with no hero power. Telltale ducked then when Diablo attacked. Just got out of the way.
I think he was just praying for good hero power, looking for one of those real power spike hero powers like the Reno that you were talking about. Did not hit though, picked up an Edwin. And the comp is just starting to cap out in terms of power scaling. This is, again, a few months ago, the kind of comp you'd be super happy to see, right? Agam, decent menagerie pieces and some generation to be able to get that Agam going, but Agam is far from the powerhouse it once was, so Telltale will probably find himself running out of steam fairly soon.
La just stared at this board for 40 seconds and then turned down, or considered turning down. He's trying to set this triple up, but it's such a mess. He still hasn't worked out what he wants to do, I don't think.
Scoreboard update, by the way, the cookie that died, that was PF. That is another Chinese player that has gone down. So we are now in a ratio of 3 live Europe players to 2 live Chinese players. You are looking at the sum total of China's hopes in this last remaining lobby, but they are still in the driver's seat. Europe will be looking, I think, for a 1-2-3 from this position.
Yeah, it sounds right to me. Does that mean that Island Cat went down there? Not quite sure who was on the cookie. Anyway, let's have a look at this.
No, Island has been dead. Island was the Mutinous. He's been dead for some time. The cookie was PF.
Right. I knew that at some point. Alright. Watching Radu on this Ragnaros.
Reborn Tank versus the Juggler. Tank has such a big advantage in this kind of matchup in most spots because, again, it can basically choose where its attacks go, and the Juggler usually tends to have quite a large amount of health. You see those attacks going through. The Juggler kind of has to high roll to hit the tank, whereas in certain spots the tank just kind of has control over where those attacks are going. That's the Imp Mummer going down now, but the Juggler does survive to get the last laugh in this position. The Reborn tokens are coming through, being clutch, and it is going to be a defeat for RDU, but he is going to stay alive. 6 damage coming through, meaning that he is still in this one. but that is a very, very random outcome. Millhouse going down as the final point of call, which is a Europe player. I believe that is Avalyn on the Millhouse. Yes, it is confirmed on the graphic
but
at the left-hand
went down
side.
too, Sottle. Tao went down
That's
first.
True. Yes, Tao in 5th, Avalyn in 4th, so it's not going to be the 1-2-3 that I was hypothesizing, but it could still be a 1-2-4 the way this is panning out at the moment. However, this is going to be what, Simi versus La 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 on this fight. So actually, yes, good chance, because RDU has actually rolled the Ghost here on the Ragnaros. So RDU in the weakest position overall in terms of health total has the arguably free fight. So if Simi can deal a colossal amount of damage to the Sneed here, she does have the opportunity to lock down the 1-2 for Europe and take us down to the adjudicators' scoreboards to a position that might just be too close for me to want to call it.
I'm going to have a quick look. So it was 9 points at the start of the lobby. Sun gained a point on Island Cat. That's 10 points. Avalyn gained a point on Tao. That's 11 points. PF picked up 3 points. So I went the wrong way already. Yeah, let's not do that.
Yes, she did.
Yeah. So
you were doing it with such confidence and purpose that I was like,
10.
I'm pretty sure he's done this wrong.
Yep. So it started off at 9, it went to 8, it went to 7. You put 3 back on, there's 10. I think I need to get 10-point gain out of these last 3, give or take. A 1-2 might
I also think, by the way, that it started at 10.
Okay, yeah. So they need a 1-2 to have a chance, and then we'll see what happens. We know it can't be a tie, because that's impossible.
Yeah, it never happened before. Don't look through the record books or anything. Ties don't happen. Is it going to matter though? She still has a secret. She does. These need to be huge demons though to think about getting the lethal here. No lethal, but she does win the fight. She does set up the damage. But it does mean now that she is going to fight a very low health RDU Ragnaros potentially in the next fight. Yep, there it is. Oh, it's the boss fight turn for Diablo, so she has every chance of killing either of these two players now based on what we saw.
Or both.
Yes.
Which is actually possible. We did see that RDU got slightly unlucky in the last fight, or at least it felt that way. I didn't actually look at the numbers because Diablo's secret fights and things, I just ignore the numbers to some degree. But RDU looked like he was hanging in there, and he has had several Ragnaros buffs since, so...
Yep, he is scaling naturally with the Rag. That is a tricky decision to be sure whether or not to pick up the Replicating Menace triple in that spot, because obviously when he's relying quite so heavily on Golden Tank, he's essentially just turned, what, 8 minions into 4 minions in the perfect world, which is a lot of negative damage taken away from that potential Meccano tank.
At La La La's build, it's a build for the future, but the time is now, so all going to depend how Sneeds decides to Sneeds all over the Sneeds. With all those drops, anything might happen with this. It's really hard to call.
What's this Eliza doing in 6th position?
Chilling.
Okay. Good to know.
Not quite sure, but it's there. Maybe it was a late triple pick or something.
Actually extremely close to 50-50. Only a 4.5% chance of a tie, which would be, of course, the dream result. Again, these players don't know this. They do not know that they are facing teammates right now. The identities are secret in these lobbies, so players cannot engineer board ties, feed each other with Ragnaros, all that. Feed each other with Rafam, all that kind of stuff that we're used to seeing in other team tournaments.
Key drop on the right.
So the ideal scenario here is a draw, but the better scenario of the two potential outcomes is a RDU win, because RDU is the player that can win and not kill his opponent here.
Yeah, it doesn't matter now as long as they survive, because La 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 was beaten there. Simi, I think, from that has won the lobby.
She
and that's
has.
bad, because that puts RDU below La La La.
Yes, it does. Beans RDU is going to go out in third. Lala's going to go out in second. Simi is going to go out in first. That's exactly what I was talking about, right? Like, if that was a very, very close fight, around 55 to 45 in Simi's favor, but the much better result for the European team was to have RDU win, because Simi survived the hit. RDU didn't. So the fact that it came down to those demons at the end, and Simi rolled pretty high power level on her demons to be able to take that down, that could very well end up being the final nail in the coffin for Europe's chance. But they did do an excellent job of making it as tight as possible, and we will now await that final scoreboard, because they did certainly win that lobby just by eyeballing it overall. But I have my doubts as to whether it was enough to bring them back to parity.
I think 1-2 was close. 1-3 I'm pretty sure isn't enough, but I still will wait. But we've got to highlight Simi. Not only is her second win of the day, but that was a terrible start on the Diablo. She fought back with 5 treasures from the first pit and just built up as the game went on and beat everybody.
Yeah, she did. It was, again, jugglers are a great way of gaining tempo in these lobbies, as we've seen. Mechano tanks generally tend to be preferred, and make no bones about it, they are generally stronger. But that looked like, even though we didn't see it happen, it looked like an incredibly rapid golden juggler, right? Like 0 to golden juggler in 3 seconds flat, from how little time we were away from her, and then we came back and she was immensely powerful. So lent into that golden juggler as hard as she possibly could. Actually found decent win condition to support that as well, with the 2 Azuls actually being able to get some stats and some numbers on her board, so she wasn't just pure juggler scam. She actually had big minions in play as well that could fight off, Mechano tank scams on the other side, right? Because the way that build was put together, those 2 huge 30-30-ish, 25-25-ish minions that she had was protecting her juggler from the Mechano tanks that were coming back the other way from so many of the other comps. Because Lorinda, I don't know if you remember, but Mechano tank actually always shoots the highest health minion on board. So that means if you have those big demon taunts in the way, you're protecting that juggler for such a long time from that RNG of being shot by potentially another juggler on the other side, and guaranteeing that it's not being targeted by a Mechano tank.
Yeah, definitely the theme of the week, though. No elementals. You go for the snipes. If there are elementals, they're no good at all. Go for the proper build, which is the elementals themselves. And we haven't found out yet what happens, if there's a tipping point in the meta as well, because the combination of meta plus different tribes rotating in and out makes it very hard to establish a meta game as such. You can't just say, oh, this is the meta, because it's like picking a hero. What do you do with Hook Tusk? We saw it turned down in some lobbies. We see it taken purely on what's in there. That's obvious, but what is not so obvious is how all of the tribes interact with each other outside of the heroes.
Yeah, and we've also seen another important factor, which is if Sunglitters is in your lobby, don't worry about her going elementals, because you'll just first hit her light spawn every single fight, which was an absolute heartbreaker for her. She's had a rough tournament, to be honest, but if the rest of her games were as unlucky as that one where we followed her quite extensively, I can start to understand why. And Sun is a fantastic player. She'll be back, and I'm sure we'll see her tearing up ladder again very soon on stream once sleep schedule recovers, if this does end up being the end of the road for Europe, which it certainly is in Battlegrounds for the main portion of the tournament. But we are still waiting to see what the results, confirmed results of this Battlegrounds round is, and what reflection that has on the potential final standings for the tournament as a whole, because I do still think outside of Americas, it could be any combination of Europe, China, or APAC that ends up going out in 4th place from here.
So here we are. The results are in, and Europe only won by 7, and that is not enough, as we suspected but didn't want to confirm. Yep. And that means that China are going to take down the full 2 points. The victory margin doesn't matter, just that you win. And that is 2 points for China in the overall standings. And that's going to make Europe's day a little bit terrifying, but Gabby is a person that exists.
If in doubt, if you're feeling anxious, if you feel like the world is just weighing down on you that little bit too heavy, if you're struggling to see the ray of sunlight cutting through the darkness, just remember, Gabby exists and everything will be okay. But yeah, you see the results there. This matchup, China versus Europe, 2-0 to China in Battlegrounds. If you're confused to how that works, basically, if you win, you get 2 points. If you don't, you get 0. That's just how the Battlegrounds portion works in terms of overall scoring. And then that overall scoring is converted into this leaderboard that you are looking at right now. And as you can see, when I was talking about it potentially being the end of the road for Europe, that is because the bottom placed team will not be progressing through to finals. And right now, the team in possession of that bottom place is Europe, and they are going to need to pick up points in Mercenaries and Constructed over China in order to leapfrog them back into contention.
APAC in a world of trouble, though. They can't get any more points. However, I will highlight now for the first time this tournament, if it's a tie, Constructed is the first tiebreaker.
Yes.
And APAC have the best constructed results. So they've got an extra
Currently.
half point on the board at the moment. If they end up in a tie, they will have the best results because they haven't been overtaken.
Okay, fair enough.
So there's that little glimmer for APAC fans. But basically, if you're from APAC, you're cheering on whoever wins the next thing to keep winning.
Yeah,
That's
you need,
right.
I mean, APAC need teams to hit goose eggs from this position, right? Because if Europe pick up 2 points out of 4 available and China pick up 1 point out of 4 available, which really doesn't seem that unlikely, then it's going to be APAC down at the bottom of the table, just without tiebreakers even coming into it.
Right, so that has been the Battlegrounds portion of this final match, and these highlights once again. Island Cat, pretty much the star player. Honestly, he only won 1 lobby, but picking up points all the way. Apart from that last lobby where it looked like he just never got anything going, and even then, it looked like he might be able to tempo his way into something.
Yeah, and I will let you go because I feel like you're on your way out. But I know we've all fallen in love with Island Cat a little bit, but I will take you that statement and raise you a Simi, yes, because she put in a fantastic performance overall, picking up a couple of wins there in that. And I think she is really, in the same way that we were saying earlier that RDU was the only reason that Europe games were even close, I think in that particular encounter, Simi was the only reason why the games were even close. So absolute shout out to Simi, fantastic performance, disappointing performance overall from Europe's Battlegrounds team, but yes, once again we pass things over to some very, very talented people, some constructed gods, some former world champions, some absolute legends of the scene, representing Europe, trying to pick up some big wins against some equally fantastic players representing China as well. If you're interested in constructed and Battlegrounds, make sure you do stay tuned because there's plenty of action still to come.
And that has been